Ms. Janet Ang.
Mr. Speaker, I am honoured to join in on this year's budget debate. I would like to declare that I am Council Member of Singapore Business Federation and hope to represent the business community's perspective. If I may start with a quote from Martin Luther King, who once said, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy." I believe that we, men and women, we all are standing at times of challenge and controversy right now. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Singapore business community is very appreciative of the strong and decisive actions by the government in dealing with survival issues in 2020 and preparing to emerge stronger with test, trace, and vaccinate in 2021. Singapore is amongst one of the most inoculated against COVID-19, with, I believe, 86.1% of our population vaccinated and with low casualties. Still, we see how Omicron strain, while fortunately not as deadly as Delta, is causing stress in our healthcare system and a slowdown in our easing of safe management measures and opening up of borders. We cannot afford to be complacent. Our muscle for alertness and resilience has been developed and put to the test time and time again over the past 2 years, and we must continue to keep it well-oiled and ready for action, but at the same time not be paralyzed by fear. So gratitude to everyone, from the multi-ministry task force to our healthcare workers and essential workers on the front lines who have helped keep the lights on and the rest of us safe. A big thank you from all of us to all of you. Now, Mr. Speaker, my personal take on this year's budget announced by Minister Lawrence Wong is the following. 1, it is a budget that balances short-term and longer-term. 2, it is a budget that recalibrates Singapore's financial and fiscal policies to ensure sustainability going forward. 3, it is a budget that all Singaporeans can play a part in returning our economy to a state of readiness for growth while caring for those amongst us who are more vulnerable and who have less. And 4, it is a budget that invests in the people of our the future of our people and our businesses to be ready for new engines of growth, even as Singapore continues to have to strengthen our healthcare defenses to tackle the evolving pandemic situation and maintain public health stability. Whether it's the $500 million of jobs and business support or the timing of the GST rate hikes, whether it's the carbon tax increase to signal the urgent action needed for decarbonization or the R&D budget for the Singapore Green Plan 2030. Whether it's the investment in new capabilities of our people and our local enterprises, or the rollout of the assurance package and the uplifting of low-wage workers with progressive wage model implementation. It's a budget that has taken an integral development approach to ensure that our people, our environment, and our economy progress in tandem and in harmony. Now, whether Budget 2022 delivers on its design now depends on how well Team Singapore executes. Now, in the latest national business study conducted by the Singapore Business Federation, the SBF, businesses who reported being negatively impacted by COVID-19 declined from 63% in 2020 to 32%. There is growing optimism as 8 in 10 firms are confident about sustaining their operations in 2022 compared to 7 in 10 firms in the previous survey. And nearly half, about 47% of businesses are confident that the economy will improve in 2022 compared to 31% of businesses in the previous survey. And I must add that, of course, the survey was pre-Russian-Ukraine situation. Now, businesses adopt a cautious outlook towards global and regional economic climate, and in the survey, businesses reported that manpower cost and availability are key challenges that they face, along with demand uncertainty, travel restrictions, and changing regulatory environment. However, 2022 will expect to see more job openings and better compensations as businesses look to build up their human capital. Companies are focusing on digitalization, re-engineering of work processes, and diversifying supply chains as key areas of business transformation. Even though most firms are aware of the importance of digitalization, many lack manpower and resources to transform their businesses. Businesses need government support in technology adoption and development of human capital as they push towards a more digitalized future. So assistance with digitalization remains the top area of support reported by businesses, with 43% desiring government help in this aspect. Support towards human capital development rose to be among the top 3 areas of business support needed in 2022, with 37% of businesses reporting a need for such assistance. Now, the level of business internationalization remains consistent with 2020, and this is another area that they are counting on government and the whole of society support. There is no evident drop-off even in the face of travel restrictions. China, Vietnam, Indonesia, and Malaysia continue to be the popular destinations for expansion. Meanwhile, geopolitical risks, including the US-China continued trade tensions, the acceleration of inflationary risks, the escalating costs of energy, and the recent Russian-Ukraine military conflict will dampen the optimism going forward. Still, we need to focus on what we can influence and keep moving forward. Budget 2022 does cover many of the areas that the businesses have called out for government support. Everyone is relieved to hear Minister Lawrence Wong announce deferring and staging GST rate hike implementation. Thank you. B, the continued support for businesses to invest in new capabilities like digitalization and automation is very much welcomed by the business community, but the escalating cost of IT manpower and shortage of IT skills continue to be a big challenge. C, Singapore being open to the best global talents to complement our local workforce gets the thumbs up by both the local business leaders and leaders of MNCs, though they still worry about policies not being aligned to the goal. And D, budget carrying both the stick and carrot to rally our businesses into action toward achieving our Singapore Green Plan 2030 is acknowledged as inevitable, and that there is a lot of work ahead of all of us. So for the purpose of my speech today, I would like to speak on 4 issues and put forward some ideas which have come up in my discussions with industry leaders and TACs, and we hope the government can support and help to address. First up is manpower availability and costs. The business community in general is concerned with manpower availability and costs as it is. Some sectors in particular, F&B and construction, are very concerned with the adjustment to foreign work policies or FWP in this year's budget. These industries have been hit hard with labor shortage exacerbated by border restrictions, and many companies in these industries have participated actively in WSG organized recruitment fairs over the past 2 years in an attempt to hire more Singaporeans to fill the open positions, but have had little success. These industries are local industries, and their manpower cannot be offshored. Our restaurants and our BTO flats depend on them being able to have the workers. So it is hoped that the government can look into sectorial differentiation when implementing the changes to the foreign worker policies, at least for the foreseeable short to medium term. Now, some manufacturing companies which are more labor intensive are also concerned that there may be a hollowing out of manufacturing to lower cost locations. Perhaps we might have to accept that outcome as inevitable, considering Singapore's scarce labor resources. Meanwhile, I would like to suggest that government and industry could get together to review the costs across the entire supply chain of our key industries and consider our strategic competitiveness end to end. This will also help identify supply chain risks and identify actions to mitigate supply chain disruptions, which we have experienced firsthand during the pandemic. There is also a suggestion by TACs for an alliance for action to be set up to look into manpower issues for overlapping industries. Next point, SMEs need capital and credit, talent and network. Singapore has had an aspiration to grow global champions from amongst our local enterprises. Temasek-linked companies have done Singapore proud in putting Singapore on the map, whether it be DBS or SIA pre-COVID-19, or Keppel or Singtel. Outside of tech companies like Sea or Grab or Carousel and other tech companies, the question is why our Singapore medium-sized companies don't get the same lift. It boils down to a lack of capital, talent, and network. Last year during COS, I applauded the $1 billion local enterprises funding platform set up by Temasek and the government. I did suggest that the support be extended beyond the LLEs to include our local SMEs, or at least the medium-sized companies. Now, in Singapore, we have promising mid-sized companies which may be stuck due to a lack of capital, lack of access to tools and networks, especially for going beyond Singapore, and lack of leadership and expert capabilities needed to break out and stand out. Now, with some support by way of talent, capital, and network, we give ourselves a better pipeline of global champions in the making. Now let me segue to share with you two stories which saddened me a little, but I thought I should share. The first story is the story of the M&A journey of a Singapore mid-sized company. When they were looking for partners, they received 40 over NDAs signed by companies from all over the world, but none from Singapore. The second story starts off well with how the government's temporary bridging loans and enterprise financing scheme were going to help our local companies tide over the difficult COVID times. Unfortunately, the relief was short-lived as the companies found their commercial credit lines with their banks terminated and transferred to the TBL and EFS offered by the government. I'm sure these are sound credit risk decisions made by the bankers, but for the SMEs, they are in a tight spot. Perhaps there are misunderstandings in the implementation of TBL and EFS that needs both sides to dialogue and move forward. It would be interesting to see how many of such cases did happen. That said, the SMEs do welcome the announcement that Minister Lawrence Wong made for this year's budget that EFS will be enhanced to include merger and acquisition and trade loans. Talent. Talent is a big topic and a big challenge. I will focus today on one small suggestion, and that is getting our cohort of public service scholars to get their feet wet and their hands dirty by being assigned to our promising SMEs for a year or two or even just 6 months as part of their bond. This experience will in fact equip them with the empathy they will need when crafting policies for the country and sharing the talented resources with our SMEs. Leveraging IP is also an exciting opportunity for our companies, but our local enterprises who have attempted to do so share that IP filing and registration need deep pockets. Some of the TACs have requested for government to consider providing funding support to guide and enable businesses to actively leverage on intangible assets as a competitive advantage. This would include leveraging on overseas IP owned by Singapore companies. I believe that the Ministry of Law and IPOS are already supporting, but perhaps SMEs can be made more aware. Point 3, going green. Now, our businesses have all woken up to the Singapore Green Plan 2030 vision as a call to action for today. It is no longer something to think about tomorrow. So, the carbon tax rate increase and the roadmap ahead is a clear conviction that sustainability is a matter of importance and of immediate action. The writing is on the wall. COP26 targets is not just the government's business, it is everyone's business. So our companies, however, need help from getting educated on everything green and sustainable to how to set their net zero plan. Financial support for green transition is critical for businesses as they map out their net zero plans. I will speak more about what is needed during my cut with MSE, but for now, suffice to say that the Made in Singapore brand needs to soon carry a new mark of global sustainable standard. My fourth point, investing in our people for the future. To navigate a tight labour market, businesses are turning towards building a strong local core through enhancing recruitment efforts and offering competitive wages. Businesses will continue to upgrade their team's skills and upgrade their expertise and knowledge, and the support by government via the Skills Future Enterprise Credits, the newly set up NTUC-administered grant for transformation plans, and other programs, for example, schemes to support the development of ICT capacity, will all go a long way. Minister of Education, Mr. Chan Chun Sing, has in recent speeches called out the key role that the IHLs, that is ITE, polys and universities, can play in partnering our enterprises to skill up and transform. I would like to share a couple of examples of industry IHL partnerships targeting at addressing skills gaps in the industry with the hope of inspiring more to do so. I declare that I am the chairman of Singapore Polytechnic, and so pardon me if my examples are from SP. The first example is how industry can proactively work with IHLs on their curriculum to enable the students to be work-ready, job-ready when they graduate. So the Sing Poly faculty at the School of Chemical and Life Sciences School developed an opportunity for deeper linkage with industry via the Diploma in Perfumery and Cosmetic Science. The school co-created the Industry Now, INC, curriculum with industry experts like IFF, Lucas Meyer Cosmetics, and Johnson & Johnson Private Limited. The innovation involves 3 semesters of learning in class and lab, 1 semester of a co-supervised live industry project sponsored by industry partners, including startup companies like Newsmatics Private Limited. The students then go on to complete their final 2 semesters in a year-long internship with an industry partner. The feedback has been very positive, and to date, 41% of the first cohort graduating in May this year are already offered jobs. Now, with the positive feedback on the course, the second cohort of students undergoing ING have doubled in size. The second example is a bold ecosystem collaboration. Sing Poly designed and set up an advanced manufacturing center in collaboration with 16 industry partners, including experts like Tooth Suit Digital Service, S-Tech Private Limited, Bosch Rexroth, Delta Electronics, and Umwa Tech Private Limited, and others. Together, they curated the Advanced Manufacturing Learning Journey curriculum, focused on enabling companies to reimagine and rethink manufacturing processes. Since the launch in October 2020, 177 companies and 632 professionals have gone through the Advanced Manufacturing Learning Journey. More than 20 companies have taken the next step to work with Sing Poly to assess where they are and have gone on to develop projects with Sing Poly staff, some involving SP's final year students as part of their final year projects, while others have SP students working projects as part of their internships. There are many such initiatives which all the IHLs have rolled out to support industry. The call to action is for all our Singapore companies to accelerate the reskilling of their workforce for transformation, and for the Singapore workers to seize the day and get reskilled to stay relevant in the dynamic, fast-moving workplace. The government has put their money squarely on investing in our people to be ready for the future. So it takes all to work together. Mr. Speaker, while we are in this chamber, there are people, businesses, homes and institutions in the cities of Ukraine being bombarded by artillery and aggression of the Russians. How can this be happening? If it can happen to Ukraine, can it happen to us? I shudder at that thought. Singaporeans must not think it could never happen. What are the lessons for us to draw on? One thing for sure is that our total defense and diplomatic corps cannot be overemphasized. Singaporeans cannot take our existence as a nation for granted. Our founding fathers, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew and his old guard colleagues, wrote our Singapore story. They had the courage to dream big, to create a first world oasis in a third world region. Their rallying cry was for this mudflat to become a metropolis. We were poor then, but we were certainly rich in spirit. Many of our forefathers were immigrants. Many were the work permit holders, EP holders, and S-Pass holders of their time. Some may have come as workers, others as merchants and traders from afar, yet others came as missionaries, as teachers and nurses. Singapore had nothing then. We were nothing. Why did they come? I will wait for media corps screenwriters to tell that story. Now, whatever the reasons that brought them here to our shores, they had the grit to defy all odds, and in spite the diversity of race, cultures, language, religions, our forefathers and mothers, uncles and aunties bonded together behind that big dream. And so, here we are today, having inherited a Singapore that is one of the world's globally recognized city-state, with strong governance, high trust, smart, innovative, and hardworking people, though a little kiasu or risk-adverse at times. Now, through the COVID-19 crisis, we saw how well we could ride the rolling waves of the pandemic with our reserves and our strength of resilience of our people, and the reserves that has been built over years of prudent fiscal discipline and strong monetary and economic excellence. In the wake of the pandemic, we saw the hearts and minds of Singapore citizens and residents reflect the care, the generosity, the empathy, and the love for neighbor, whether our essential workers or our migrant communities. Going through the storm is one thing. Building back up is where we are now, and we must not fall into potholes of narcissism, discouragement, and pessimism. I believe that Singaporeans at the core have a strong sense of integrity and a deep sense of responsibility to our work, to our family, to each other, and to our country. As we learn to live with COVID, we must learn fast to tackle this next pandemic of climate change that is already upon us. We must take responsibility for the development of our own skills, leveraging the support that the government is providing. Together, let us not wait for the fish to be handed to us, but let us learn to fish for ourselves and our family and our neighbors, and live the dream that our forefathers could only imagine. Let me close with a few lines from our NDP 2021 theme song, which I hope will inspire us to join our hands as we chart our new way forward together. I won't sing for you, but the words are, "There were times we were uncertain, but we just kept walking on. It's always the darkest just before the dawn. See this island, every grain of sand. Hear this anthem, it's the voices of our friends. Come, whatever on the road ahead, we did it before and we'll do it again." With this, I conclude with my support for the Budget 2022. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and the House, for your kind attention.